Can't find my way out. Something like this. Oh my God. Hey there, Fiber Junkies! Welcome back to the Color Cauldron. I'm Johanna, the owner and dyer behind Potion Yarns and host of this podcast. If you click that first link in the description box below, it'll take you to my online shop where you can see my hand-dyed yarns and fiber that I have for sale and find out a little bit more about my company. If you're a new viewer, this will be news to you, so let me catch you up with where we are at. We are doing a giveaway on the podcast currently, and I know that's what everybody is here to talk about today and excited about, so we're going to jump right into that. Basically, we've been doing a 3-week-long giveaway, so the last 2 videos that came out and this video today all give you the chance to win free yarn and accessories on my podcast. In order to win, you have to be a subscriber to my channel, so click that subscribe button right now so that you're eligible to win and you don't ever miss a video coming up. And then the other thing you have to do is each episode for the last 3 weeks, we give a question and you have to answer the question in the comments below. So if you just leave a generic comment, it doesn't count. But if you answer my question in the comments, you'll get 1 entry per video. So you can have up to 3 entries this week, last week, and the week before. So if you have not watched those videos, make sure that you watch them as soon as you finish this one and leave the comment because each question is different. So you have to answer each one. So let's talk about your question, and then I'm going to let's show you what you're going to win first, and then I'll give you the question. The first thing you're going to win, we're just going to go through these briefly, so if you want more information, go back and watch my previous 2 videos, especially the very first one where I went into detail on all of the things that you're going to win and where they came from. But you're going to win this fabulous Potion Bottles bag, which comes from Georgianne at the Stitching Plaza. I will put a link to her podcast in the description box below so you can check her out as well. But she makes these really awesome project bags, and she made this Potion Bottles one especially for Potion Yarns. So this one is mine that I have been using. As you can see, it's holding my entire floozy cardigan and has plenty of space for that. And then I'm going to stuff that bag with some goodies. 2 skeins of my hand-dyed yarn. Excuse me. One is a fingering weight superwash merino and one is a DK weight superwash Polworth, so both types of wool. And so you'll get 1 each of those. And then you'll also get an anatomical heart stitch marker that comes from the lovely Wanda at Silly Sheep Designs. She made these beautiful anatomical hearts glazed in black glitter last year for my limited edition Edgar Allan Poe set. And I have a few extras, so I am going to be giving one of those stitch markers away with this bag and these 2 skeins of yarn. So you have the opportunity to win lots of fabulous, fabulous goodies. So let's talk about what question you need to answer. Today is going to be really easy, actually, compared to the last 2 weeks. It's just about what you like to work with or what you like to buy. When it comes to indie dyed yarns specifically, what type of yarn is your favorite to work with? And this is multiple choice, so you have multiple options. First off is like tonals or semi-solids. This would be like my vintage Vixen colorway. It's like a deep wine, kind of rosy pink. So like magenta, wine pink, lots of different shades of pink. It goes from some lighter areas into like some really, really bright areas into like kind of a deeper, darker, almost purpley pink. So it shifts between shades of pink, but if you look at it just from a distance, you're like, oh, pink yarn. Then there are variegated yarns where you have multiple colors in the skein. This is a great example because you have the green, the white, the corally colors. They're all in one skein and it flows from one color to the next, but you have like bigger sections of color. Variegated can also be short runs of color, but it's instead of being all pinks that you just douse the whole skein in a pot of pink, you've got like blue, purple, green, pink, red, blue, black. It goes from one color to one color to one color to one color within the same skein. So that's kind of the difference between variegated. We went over this in more detail in a video that I already did on the podcast several months ago, so you might want to scroll back and look through that. I think it's called Variegated's Tonals and Speckles Oh My, or something like that. And then the other option that I dye a lot is speckled yarn, which I have here. My La Vie en Rose is a speckled yarn, so it's got like this nice tonal background, but then it has little pops and speckles of color over it. It can be a subtle speckle like that, or it can be a really, really bright speckle where you have all these different colors and really busy. But that is another version. And then there's two other types of indie dyed yarn. There's probably more types than that, but there's two specific categories that I'm thinking of that I don't personally dye, but a lot of dyers do, and that is gradient or ombre yarns, where it switches from like a dark navy blue to a really bright royal blue to a lighter blue to a powder blue to white. So it shifts through all the different colors in a gradient version. Or there's self-striping, where it creates the solid stripes of colors, or self-patterning, I suppose would be another way of looking at it. Usually it's stripes, sometimes it's other stuff. I don't dye those last two types of yarn, but those are yarns you can find with indie dyers a lot. So I just want to know, what is your favorite type to work with personally? What do you tend to buy the most of, and what do you tend to enjoy knitting with the most? What would tempt you to purchase the most online? Do you tend to gravitate towards tonals? Do you tend to gravitate towards speckles, etc.? Like for me, I love a really good variegated yarn. I love it, and that's actually a big part of what I do when I'm dyeing, but I think I tend to buy speckles even more because I find them even easier to work with, and I'm just obsessed with speckles right now, and they're just so fun to knit with. But I've been noticing lately that I've been buying a lot of variegated and speckled, and I've been really wanting to knit things that have more intricate stitch work with them recently. So and like color work and things. So I've been needing to do more of the tonals and solids lately to kind of balance out all the speckles and variegateds that I have in my stash. So tell me what you normally like to work with the most. And make sure that you hit that subscribe button right now so that you don't miss this chance to win. And then go back and watch my other two videos, and there are two other individual questions on each of those videos that you'll need to answer to be entered to win. We will pick a winner next week, so I'm going to give this one full week to come out, and then after it has released, a full week after, I will choose the next winner, and then we will announce it on the podcast, and you'll get a week to respond, and if you don't respond within that 1 week, then I will have to pick a new winner. So you don't have a ton of time to respond, but I just need to get this stuff out of my house. So that's how we're going to go. Make sure you check your YouTube notifications, make sure you're watching the podcast, etc. And you do have to create a free account in order to leave a comment. I did have this question last week about some people that wanted to leave a comment, but they weren't sure how to. If you are signed into your account on YouTube, either through the website or via the app if you're on your phone, you should have an account set up. If you haven't, you can go and create a free account. And I don't care what name you use or picture or whatever. If you want to remain anonymous, that's fine. You just make something up, but you do have to have an account in order to leave a comment, I believe. So make sure that you do that. Okay, let's talk about my trip to DFW. So this last weekend I was at DFW Yarn Crawl in Texas. I had two trunk shows, one at a balance skein in Sherman, which is a little yarn shop there in downtown Sherman, and then I had one the next day on Saturday. I was with several other indie dyers and some yarn stores and just local indie companies, project bag makers and things at the Tups Brewery in McKinney, Texas. And that was pretty challenging because we had a lot of last minute changes to the time frames and how much time we got to set up. There was just a lot of not great communication happening with the brewery, I think, and the organizers of the show. So they kind of found out some things last minute that the brewery switched on them or changed up on them, and were able to communicate it to us, but it was a little bit of a scramble for everyone, including the organizers. We were all like, which way is up? What's happening right now? And the worst part for me was I don't do well in heat. So going to Texas in August was already like, are y'all crazy? Like, I kept asking people down there, I was like, so what made you guys plan a yarn crawl in August in Texas? And their reasons were good, so people have time to knit for the holidays and things like that. Makes perfect sense, except it's Texas and it's August. It's hotter than blazes. I thought it got hot here in Kansas City. It is nothing compared to Texas. Holy crap, that was like a whole new level. And like we've been having a lot of rain here in Kansas City lately, which is kind of unusual for August. It's been actually pretty cool and rainy. And today it's bright and sunny and hot again, but usually it's cool and rainy, or it had been the last week before I went to the yarn crawl. So I was like down to like 64 degrees, cloudy, rainy, a little cool. I might need a sweater in the mornings. And then I get down there and I'm like, oh my God, I can't take off enough clothes to not be hot. Like even if I was naked, I would be hot probably right now. So I got there to the brewery, all that to say, I got there the morning of, and nobody, including the organizers, knew that there was not going to be air conditioning in the brewery because we were inside the brewery. but we were in the beer garden area, so they just opened a couple of big doors on either side and had this cross breeze coming in, and some fans going, which definitely helped, but no air conditioning. And we were out there from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with no air conditioning, selling yarn. And so considering all that, I gotta say, Texans are hardcore, y'all. I was so impressed with how many people, A, came out, period, and B, how many people actually bought yarn in those sticky hot conditions. But yeah, it was definitely rough. And even the Texans were like, this is a little much. Like, there should be AC here. Come on, people. So I'm not sure. And the brewery has their beer garden open all the time because they do live music in the summer. And they had a, like, you know, little bar area where you could go order drinks and sit out there and drink right where we were doing the yarn show. And I was like, so they never have AC? And like, they get people to come out here and drink beer in the heat? And I guess they do. But man, that was rough. So I had a little bit of heat exhaustion on Saturday night, and unfortunately I had a terrible migraine that went on all day and just nothing worked out. But despite that, it was a great show. It was fun. I met some really fabulous people. Thank you to everyone who came out. It was an enjoyable time, a good trip overall. So I wanted to show you the yarn that I picked up at the DFW Yarn Crawl. I did have to go back and redo this section because I lost one of the ball bands on one of the skeins I purchased, and I really wanted to tell you the fiber content and I couldn't remember it. So I had to get in contact with the supplier that I got it from, and she let me know the fiber content, so now I can actually give you more information on the skein than what I was originally able to. So we redid this part of the video, but I'm so excited to show you what I got. Because if you've been around for a while, you know that we've been working on a wool series in the podcast. It's where we talk about different types of sheep breeds and their wool and what makes them different, unique, better for different types of projects, etc. And so both of the skeins that I purchased at DFW were from Goth Farm Yarns, and she specializes in undyed, naturally colored wools using kind of more unique fiber blends and unique wools. So she gets her products, here's her logo, she gets her products from, she gets the fleeces from small farmers, small producers that will be producing different types of wool like Jacob and different kinds of alpaca and mohair and all these different animals. And then she takes the fleeces and does a little bit of the prep herself and then sends them to small mills that specialize in smaller production of more unique fibers, and then those mills will send her skeins all milled and spun for her. So it's commercially spun, but it's more of a rustic wool because it doesn't use any dyes on any of the skeins. All the colors that you see are just from the animal fibers blended together, create different unique looks. So, you know, if you put like a black and a white together, you get more of like a gray or a peppery kind of color. And then everything is kind of minimally processed, so it has that more like rustic feel, and you get more of the really awesome properties of the wool before it's been just like stripped and scoured. And she doesn't do like superwash and things like that that are very over processed. Not that there's a problem with them, but superwash is really, really good for specific types of projects and specific types of things. Like my wools will really work best on my dyes work best on superwash wools because of the really rich, intense colors that I use are just easier to see, and they take much deeper and have a lot more depth to them when they've been superwash prepared and when you work on all white fibers or sometimes a light gray. But these fibers have not been bleached or superwash treated or anything like that. So I wanted to show you the skeins I got. The first one is called Electrum, and it's this absolutely gorgeous beigey color, and it is 60% red mohair, 20% Jacob sheep wool, and 20% Mugga silk. So the silk gives it this really beautiful shine and sheen to it, and the wool and the mohair give it this really fabulous, bouncy, kind of almost crunch, but the silk just keeps it so drapey smooth. So it's a really unique blend. I'm so excited to try using it because I have been wanting to knit with Jacob sheep for about a little over a year at least, and I hadn't come across any wool yet. I hadn't looked at online too terribly much, but just at some of my local fiber fests and things, I hadn't come across too much of the already spun yarn. I was seeing more hand spun yarn or fleece for you to spin your own, and I wanted to just try a commercially spun yarn first. So this was perfect. I can't wait to knit it up because we still have to talk about Jacob sheep on the podcast, so that'll be coming in the future. And then the other one that I got was the one I lost the ball band for. This is, I forget what she called, I think it was Carbonado. But basically, it's this really great charcoaly, almost kind of black color, like a light black. And it's got this really fabulous fuzzy halo on it because it uses black alpaca. And alpaca tends to have a bit more of a fuzzy appearance. And then East Frisian wool and Gotland wool. So East Frisian and Gotland were both ones that I had heard of briefly, but I didn't really know anything about. I haven't done a lot of research on them yet, but I think those will be coming to the wool series pretty soon since I now get to try knitting with some. And I just could not resist this skein. I definitely knew right off the bat this was going to be the one I got, but I was only going to get one. And then I just couldn't put this one down once I picked it up because it's just so fluffy and bouncy. It's just got a very lightweight, lofty feel. Alpaca is very, very lightweight, and so I think that's part of what contributes to the light feel of this skein, but it just feels like cushy for days. Like, I feel like this would be a really phenomenal little cowl, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with either of these. I'm thinking fingerless gloves is going to be at least one of them. Maybe a cowl, like a short little neck warmer or something, but I'm not sure yet. There's only 185 yards in each of these, and they are, they're listed as a sport weight, but based on the gauge and like the individual strand feel, I think it might work as more of like a DK/sport. So I have yet to figure out what I'm going to make with them, but I'm very excited. So thank you, Monica, for letting me try these. I just absolutely love them. So if you get a chance, go check out Monica's website. I will leave a link to her shop below so that you can see all of the gorgeous products she has. She also has t-shirts with her logo and bags if you want to get some. And she is from Texas, so if you are in the Texas area, keep an eye out at local events. Maybe check her website from time to time, and definitely follow her Instagram, just Goth Farm Yarns, because she will be posting about some of her upcoming events, I'm sure, and you'll want to go check them out because they're awesome, and I can vouch for their amazingness, so you should definitely go buy them on her website. But if you get a chance to feel them in person, it's even better because they're just so unique. Even if you don't buy them, it'll help your fingers to just get used to feeling more uniqueness. But I guarantee you, if you get to see them in person, you're going to buy at least one, probably several. I had to really cut myself off at just 2, but I'm so excited to try them, and I have a feeling there will be more in my future, especially after I work with them. Also, I wanted to tell you guys that Monica works with a small mill called Valley Oak Wool Mill, and they were instrumental in producing her final product. She works with them very closely, and they really help to partner with her. It's really a collaboration between her and the mill, creating these really fabulous, unique fiber blends that are they're just going to be so different from what you can find on your local yarn store shelves. They're going to be different than what you can find in my shop or any other indie dyer that I'm aware of. There's probably someone out there who's doing something similar, but the cost is going to go way up when you're using that kind of small batch production and unique fibers and all of that. Plus, if they're dyeing on top of that, it would go up quite a bit, and it's just going to be a very different feel. So keep an eye out for those. I don't know of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's someone out there doing it. But it's just going to be so different trying Monica's skeins than anything else you're used to, I'm sure, unless you already have someone like that in your area. And I would highly, highly recommend, especially if you're enjoying the wool series and you're wanting to learn more and educate yourself on different types of breeds and what they're good for and what to use them for, this is going to be really, really helpful in your education. So thank you to Monica and Valley, what did I just say? Oh my gosh, I just forgot it, you guys. Whatever I just said. Valley Oak Wool Mill. There we go. I remembered it. Valley Oak Wool Mill. I kept switching them around in my head. Thank you to both of those amazing contributors for this beautiful, fantastic, unique product. I cannot wait to try it. I will definitely be swatching and knitting these projects in the coming weeks, and we'll be talking about this in our wool series and on the podcast, so you will definitely get to see these knit up. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that discussion coming up. So that's the only yarn that I brought this weekend, but I did bring home another souvenir that I wanted to share with you guys. After our busy days full of selling yarn and everything all day, we'd usually end pretty exhausted and would go pick up dinner on the way home to the Airbnb. And we discovered a little winery in downtown McKinney, Texas called Landon Winery. And I will put a link to their website below so you can check them out. I always like to try local stuff wherever I am, whether it's wine, cheese, honey, jam, whatever. If at all possible, I like to try the local restaurants and things like that. If it's a winery, I am 120% there because I love, 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 love wine. However, I'm picky. As I have developed my palate over the years, I've gotten pickier, so a lot of the wines I used to enjoy drinking, I am not as into. And if you know anything about Kansas and Missouri wines, you will know that they are very, very sweet. And a lot of people love them. And I've heard a lot of people be real snotty about them, like, oh, Kansas and Missouri wines are just really crappy and bad, and they're just too young and they don't understand how to make a good wine. And then I've actually heard some other people defending it and saying that's actually not true. It's just a completely different style than like traditional Napa Valley wines or something like that. That is definitely the case. I think there are some good Kansas and Missouri wines, but I think that, in my opinion, just based off my personal tastes, I'm not very impressed with most of the local wines we try. I still enjoy trying them. I'm still going to go and get a flight at like every winery I pass on I-70 when I'm driving through Kansas and Missouri. It's going to happen. But I have over the years learned that most local wines around here, at least, are typically very, very fruity and very, very light and sweet, and that's just not my style. I prefer more complex, drier wines and things like that. So I was pleasantly surprised trying the local winery. We tried 2 local wineries there, and one was okay. Actually, the other one wasn't a local winery. It was just a local wine shop, like a wine tasting place or whatever. It was okay, but it wasn't amazing. But this one, Landon Winery, was amazing. And it's so amazing that I brought home more than one, maybe several bottles of wine because you can order them online. So if you're not in Texas, you should definitely check that out because it is worth it. It's delicious, but it is very pricey ordering wine online. So if you're right there, you might as well pick up a few bottles on your way home. So that's what I did. We got a couple different flights and tried things. And the other thing I'd say about Landon is if you're in Texas, get thee hence to a Landon winery because not only are they delicious, but at least the one in McKinney we went there twice on our trip, and both times the staff was just incredibly friendly, so helpful, very, very sweet. The atmosphere was very relaxed and cozy, and just you felt very free to just come in and enjoy some wine at your own pace. And the staff was super, super helpful. They were super accommodating. If you had questions, they were just like, yep, we'll make that happen for you, whatever we can to make your stay good. They were just really phenomenal. So kudos to Landon Winery for having an awesome business and amazing wine. And this one is the dry orange muscat because I'd never tasted a wine quite like this. It tasted like orange and lime and something else. I don't even know what else, but it was amazing. So I got that and a Chardonnay and a Cabernet, and I'm very excited about my new wines. And if you are in Texas, you should definitely go to Landon Winery. If you are not in Texas, you should plan a Texas trip and go to Landon Winery. They have more than one location. So besides McKinney, I think they have one in, is it Greenville? It's either Greenville or Gainesville. I can't remember. It started with a G. Somewhere in Texas. Greenville or Gainesville or something. And then there was another place, like, I want to say Wiley, but I don't know if that's right. Anyways, they have multiple locations around Texas, so you should check them out. Okay, so that's what I brought home from Texas this weekend, as well as a little bit of heat exhaustion and a lot of new friends and great memories. And a really fun, memorable trip with my husband. He was able to take off work and come with me this weekend, and that was a huge blessing because he was supposed to be out of town for work right now, and his trip got canceled, and he was able to come with me, and he was just such a big help. More than anything, I need moral support on these trips. Like, if I have to, I can unload yarn and set up and take money and do everything if I really, really need to by myself. Although it's nice to have someone else to help me, especially with the loading and unloading. But where I really need the help is I've discovered that the thing that I need help with more than anything in my business is morale. If I'm working on my own, I can easily get discouraged, tuckered out, tired, frustrated, cranky, pessimistic, etc. And just having somebody there at the end of the night when I get done selling yarn all day in a non-air conditioned brewery is someone that can just be like, you know what, let's go get you a good dinner and air conditioning. You can take a nice cool shower, relax, and we'll just talk and have fun, or I'll just remind you of how great your business is doing, tell you how proud I am of you. He's so good at that. So he was an amazing support, and he had to lift a lot of heavy boxes too. So I was really glad he came. So the final thing I wanted to talk about today is I had this really fun idea to start doing like little trips down memory lane when it comes to my knitting. So I wanted to show you guys some of my old knitting projects and talk about patterns I liked or didn't like, yarns I liked or didn't like, etc. Unfortunately, I don't have any of my very, very first knits anymore. I'm a very practical kind of a knitter, and I don't have just scads and scads of space, especially as this business is expanding and I'm still working out of my home. I have had to get rid of a lot of extra stuff that I'm not using anymore. So over the years, I have tended to throw out or give away knits that I am not wearing or that I don't like, or sometimes I'll just frog the whole thing and reuse the yarn. So I don't have any of like my first ever knits or my first sock or my first sweater or whatever. I just don't have a lot of those things. But I thought that some of the ones that I do have, it would be really fun to take you down memory lane a little bit and show you some of the things that I have knit in the past and talk about them just for fun. I just thought it would be really kind of cool to take a peek in my knitting history. So we're not going to get to everything today, but we are going to look at a few projects. And the other caveat I had is I never ever, a couple years ago, I would never have guessed that I, A, would have a hand-dyed yarn company, and B, even more so, that I would have a podcast talking about it. So I didn't keep a lot of good notes on all of my yarns and patterns. And so I will do my best to look up the patterns and give links below, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I may not get them all in. This putting out the podcast and running the hand-dyed yarn company while also working at a hair salon and running that business, it takes up a lot of my time, and it's just a lot getting a video out every week. And so I will do my best, but I'm not going to spend just hours and hours scouring Ravelry and old pattern books trying to find the pattern name and trying to look up yarn online, especially discontinued yarns and things like that. So I'll do my best, but this is really more just like a, you know, it'd be fun to show you what I've done or what I've worked on and give you kind of loose inspiration as opposed to like, go buy this yarn, it's amazing, and I loved working with it, you know? So I'll do my best, but I make no promises. So let's take a look at some of the things that we have today. Oh, Fitz, I need that Buster. I don't think you can see him in the frame. If you can, the black and white kitty sitting to my right is my big boy, Fitz. We rescued Fitz and Gretchen as babies, and they were teeny tiny. They were 4 or 5 weeks old, and they both fit in the palm of my hand, and I have little hands. They were just little balls of fluff with eyes. They're adorable. And then they started growing, and Fitz got like huge and fat and obese, and then he started having health problems, and we found out that he has a hereditary disease, so he has to be on special medicated food now because his body can't process magnesium that is in most cat food and all these things. So he's lost some weight. He's lost about 6 pounds from where he was, which is good, but he's still pretty big. He's still pretty fat, and he's really sweet with me most of the time, but he is my most bipolar cantankerous cat, where he can be like super, super sweet 1 minute and then try to kill you the next minute. So he may be making an appearance, and if you've been hearing the whining in the background, the little cat cries, that's him. That's Fitz. So the first thing we're talking about is this little number. This is actually a dual purpose accessory, and that's what I love about it. So I actually knit this when I was bored and we were broke. Right after we got married, we went through a period where my husband unexpectedly lost his job at the same time that I had just moved my job from the suburbs of Kansas to downtown Kansas City, Missouri, and I did not think I would lose as many clients as I did at the hair salon, and I lost a lot more than I was anticipating and kind of had to rebuild my business almost from scratch, and that was terrifying. And it happened at the same time my husband was unemployed, right after we got married, right after we moved, right after all of these things happened, and there were some other, like, my car went out and some other things all happened at the same time, and we were super broke. So there was like very little money even for groceries, much less money for yarn. So I had to knit from stash and or the sale rack at the big box stores, which meant acrylic that's been discounted down to like $1 or $2, which meant you didn't get the best stuff by any means. So for a while I just knit with crappy yarn and whatever patterns I could find that would work with what I had in stash, which was mostly single skeins or maybe like a lot of like 4 or 5 skeins of this really ugly pukey color that was on the sale rack, and it's all acrylic. So this is just acrylic from a big box store. I don't remember the yarn or the company or the colorway name, but it's a variegated yarn that has like pinks and different shades of red and dark brown in it. But what's cool about it is it came from the book Cowl Girls by Kathy Karen. I don't remember the exact name of the cowl, but it's in that book. But it is a cowl, so you knit this really cool lace tube in the round, and then through the middle of it there are extra big eyelets, and you knit an I-cord, thread it through the eyelets, and then tie it to get this cute little tie that you cinch, and then you can wear it like this, like a cowl, or you can pull it up and you have a hood. So it's a really great dual purpose. The eyelets make it really nice and breathable, so you're not like just having this big heavy thing around your neck. You've got some airflow coming in to help to regulate the temperature. But it's a really great multi-purpose super easy, just worsted weight, 1 to 2 skeins depending on how big your skein is. It's a super fast knit. I knit it literally like 7 years ago, but I love it. It really works well, and I forgot about it and didn't wear it for a really long time, and then I found it this winter when I was cleaning some stuff out, and I was like, I'm going to get that out and wear this next winter. This is going to be awesome. So that's our first thing. The next thing we're going to be talking about is this really cool little headband that I found. I actually have not I have not worn this one yet. This came from the Sock Yarn One Skein Wonder books by Judith Durant. And I don't remember who wrote this pattern particularly, but it's just a little single, like 50-gram skein is all you need. And it's really nice for if you want something that will keep your interest, because the stitch pattern changes so much. You've got all these little like textured stitches, traveling stitches, cables, etc. It's really, really nice little traveling stitch pattern on there. And shaping and everything. So it's a really interesting knit, but it's very quick and easy, and it takes very little yarn. And then you just need one button to do it up in the back. So I selected this really cool vintage button. I have no idea where it came from. I just found it in my stash. And it has a little crescent moon on it, and then it's got this, it's kind of like a dark brown, and then it's got a purple iridescent glaze over it, which goes great with my purple yarn. So basically you would just wear it like this, and then button it in the back for a little like ear warmer / headband in cool weather. I haven't actually worn it yet though, because after I knit it I literally knit this like 6 or 7 years ago, and then stuffed it in a drawer. And then about 3 years ago, I pulled it out when I was cleaning stuff out, and I blocked it like a good kid, and then didn't have a button / didn't want to mess with it, shoved it back in a drawer. And I pulled it out 2 months ago and was like, okay, screw this, I'm finding a button. So I found a button in my stash, and I'm really excited to wear it this fall and winter and see how I like it. All right, the next thing that I have is actually not something I knit or actually crocheted. It's a crochet pattern. I did not crochet this. It was a gift I received, but it's so cute. I wanted to show it to you guys. My sister is also a knitter and crocheter. She taught herself to crochet out of a book. Our mom taught us to knit years ago. My mom knows how to crochet too, but Jennifer just learned to knit and then like didn't do it. Kind of like me. We learned as kids, and then none of us really stuck with it. And then when she was in college and getting her master's degree, she needed something to do to take a break from studying that wouldn't cost a lot of money going out, but something she could do at home or take with her to class or whatever. So she taught herself to crochet, and then she taught me to crochet. And so for my birthday a couple years ago, she made me this adorable vintage cloche hat. And what's really cool about it is she found the pattern in an old vintage crochet book from like the 30s, I think. And she had some yarn. It's just like kind of scratchy acrylic, which is actually perfect for this style because it's got some like stiffness to it and some body. And this kind of hat, you kind of need a little stiffness to hold its shape. So it's actually perfect yarn for this type of pattern. I wouldn't want a sweater out of it, but it's great for just this hat. But she found a couple skeins of this kind of scratchy acrylic in our great-grandmother's stash after she passed away. And so nobody wanted it in the family because it was just cheap from like the 80s acrylic. So she made me a vintage pattern, or a vintage hat from a vintage pattern with my vintage great-grandmother's yarn, which I thought was just sweet. And then I added this little cameo brooch to it because she had this real cute flower, but it was a little floppy. And she was like, I think you could put a brooch in there if you wanted some bling. So I added this really cool vintage cameo brooch that I got years ago when I worked at a vintage clothing store. And it's supposed to be just a little like 1920s cloche style hat. Isn't this so cute? I love it. Since she got it out of a vintage crochet book, I don't think you can actually get this exact same pattern. I will ask her if she still has a pattern name. I don't know if she even still has the little leaflet. But if I can't find it and put a link below, I do know that you can find vintage patterns on, I will probably, instead of asking her for her pattern, I'll probably just put a link to, I know there's a site where you can get free vintage knitting and crochet patterns online. Now they are they're not test knit or updated. They're literally just someone scanned in old copies of old vintage crochet and knitting patterns. So there are a lot of errors. There usually, if it's a sweater or something, you only get one size, maybe two. There's not a lot of sizing options. There's no errata. There are no schematics a lot of times. Sometimes there aren't even pictures. So it's rough. It's what you see is what you get. But it can give you some really cute vintagey ideas. What you could do also is you could just put in like vintage cloche hat on Ravelry and just, I know there are similar styles that have been written by modern designers or updated from vintage patterns by people doing their own modern updated versions with notes that you can find. So I don't have a pattern link to give you, and I apologize for that. But I thought it was so cute, and I really love this little, I think this is maybe called crocodile stitch. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not a big crocheter, but I think that might be what this little leafy thing is. But I love how the top is just like simple little crochet grid, and then she has these really cool lacy leafy patterns, and then the cute little flower, which you could leave off if you didn't want it. But I love it. It's so cute. So it was a great gift idea for me, and I wear that one a lot. Okay, next is a shawl that I made. This came from a Jane Austen Knits magazine from Interweave Knits, and it's called a Hap for Harriet, Hap, H-A-P. That's an old-fashioned term for a shawl. And it's basically just a square. And you start in the middle with this lacy design, and you knit a big square, like rectangle back and forth. Then you pick up stitches around each of the edges, and you knit in the round. And then as you're going in the pattern, it tells you how to miter the corners. So you get these mitered corners to make this big square that then you can fold over any number of ways and have a really great shawl. I did use a lace weight for this, so it is a bit slow going because it's rather large, being such a small yarn, and relatively small needles, although I want to say these were maybe like a 4 or something, so they weren't tiny, tiny. Excuse me. But I just knit this out of stash several years ago, so I had some Rowan fine lace in this kind of dusky grayish blue color and this kind of soft sagey green. But I only had one skein each, so this was knit originally in just one color. It was knit in a cream or a white, an all one color in the excuse me, in the pattern. So I started with the blue in the middle, and then when I got to the border, I switched to the other color, and then I ran out of the border color before I finished, so I added on some more blue just to make it work. And then I went to the store because I was completely out of yarn at that point, and I bought one skein of white Rowan fine lace because I thought these colors looked like a stormy sea, and I thought it would be really cool to have the white on the edging so it looked like the white topped wave caps on a stormy ocean. You know how you get the like white foam at the top of the wave. So that's what this shawl reminds me of. And what I love about it is it's crazy lightweight. After you block it, it stretches out so nice and it's so beautiful, but it's super lightweight. You can fold it up and squish it in something and it maintains its shape and doesn't get out of the blocking, but it's so warm. I absolutely love this shawl in the cool fall or winter months because it's really warm, but it's really lightweight. Beautiful, beautiful. If you're into kind of more heirloom lace knitting, or if you're wanting to try heirloom lace knitting, but it seems intimidating, this is actually a really good way to get into it. It's not an easy pattern. It's not for a beginner, but if you are intimidated by some of the extra super lacy, as you can see, this is like a lace shawl, but it's not like super duper loopy lacy, super spider webby. So if that part is intimidating to you, this would be a good like heirloom shawl project to start on to kind of break in and get familiar with some of the traditional shapes and techniques before you tackle something even bigger. But I really liked that pattern. So, okay, the next thing I have is just a little hat. Actually, I don't want that one. Let's not do that one. All right, we're gonna have to do those other ones because I don't want Fitz to bite me. Okay, the next thing that I have is also a shawl, but it is a very modern little shawlette. This is called the Metallurgy Shawl by Very Busy Monkey on Ravelry. And basically, you just do a garter, like crescent wedge at the top here, and then you have this edging that you knit on, so you'll be like changing direction and knitting across the edging part on the live stitch. So you'll pick up a new live stitch each row, and that's how you go down the length of the shawl. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain. It's actually really easy if you just follow the pattern. I apologize because I do not remember the colorway name, but this is a Madeline Tosh yarn. It is a fingering weight. I believe it's her Merino Light base, a single ply. But I bought it years ago at my local yarn store. I would say probably like 4 or 5 years ago. So not like crazy long, but I don't remember the colorway name, but it's got these really, it's really pretty. I feel like it should be called something like firewood or something that sounds like a bonfire on a fall evening or something, because that's what it looks like. It's very orange and paprika and goldy. But I don't remember the exact colorway name, but it's so pretty, and it is Madeline Tosh, and it only takes one skein by about 400 to 440 yards of fingering weight, so this would be a great project to use up for a lot of your different things. I would use a solid, semi-solid, or a light speckle, not a variegated, because the edging has these really intricate traveling stitches that you'll want to make sure you can actually see the design, and a variegated yarn would be too busy for that. So I would definitely use a semi-solid like I did, or a light speckle like the La Vie en Rose that I showed during the giveaway portion. I like it. One of the things I don't like about it is I don't like how single skein shawls are so tiny. I mean, I know that's the attraction, but like I don't wear this shawl that often because it is so tiny that I have trouble making it look good and keeping it on my shoulders. What I do like about this one is, though, it has this really nice crescent shape. So it does actually sit on your shoulders because these act kind of like little wings. So it sits on your shoulders better than most single skein shawls that I've tried. But I still feel like it's kind of shallow and short and small to really be a great, great shawl. So I don't wear it as much as I would like to. When I first knit it, I wore it all the time, and now I don't wear it as much, but I do really like it. I love, love, love the color. And what I liked about it is this was fun to knit. It was interesting, challenging enough to keep my interest, but not challenging enough to discourage me. It was really, really fun. I loved that it didn't take a ton of yarn, so I could use a single skein of something expensive and precious and really get a good project out of it and a really enjoyable knit. I really like Very Busy Monkey's shawl designs. She has several, and they're all very geometric looking. So this is the only one I've knit of hers, but I purchased another one of her shawls recently. Well, it was a couple years ago. I just still haven't knit it. But I'm thinking about trying another one of her shawls soon. So I'll put a link to this pattern below, and you can go check out her Ravelry designs. But that's about all we have time for today. I do have some more projects I'd really love to walk down memory lane with you later, but I wanted to kind of space them out so A, it doesn't get too boring, and B, we have something to talk about a little bit later on. But we're going to just kind of intersperse them here every so often. And we will get back to our wool series and talk more about different types of wool on another video. Probably next week or the week after we'll get back into that, but I think I'm going to space out the wool series a little bit more. When we did the sock series, we did it all kind of right in a row because we only had a few videos, I think 3 or 4, maybe 5 tops that we were doing, and they ranged a bit more in what we were talking about, I felt like. So now that I'm trying to just focus a little bit more on specific types of wool, and there's a lot more wool to talk about than just sock techniques, although I could go on about sock techniques for forever, but I did kind of a basic overview, whereas this we're getting pretty intense about the wool. I think it'd be best to spread those out a little bit so we have a bit more variety and interest. So we'll be getting back into those soon. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, but it is now time to cast off. Love you!